Okay guys, so today we're starting plant systems. Students will watch a quick Amoeba Sister video on plant systems. I really like this because it goes over all the Amoeba Sister stuff that we do know about plants, mostly like photosynthesis, where the reactants and products go. We are going to go over a PowerPoint. I actually have the PowerPoint printed out for you so we can just put it in our journal under Plant System Notes PowerPoint. And then we're going to be doing this foldable. Okay, this foldable goes over all the systems of the plant. So remember, animals have so many systems. We have 11 systems. So it's the circulatory, the respiratory, the endocrine, integumentary, excretory, all those systems. Plants don't have as many, but they kind of still have to do the same thing. Okay, so that's what we're going to learn. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we are going to watch this Amoeba Sister video. I may stop it, give some input, but yep, so this is the first thing we're going to do.
At first, plants might not seem all that exciting, and you might wonder, why must I learn about plants? But plants are so important for life. They are producers, which means that they are the main support for food webs. Many medications that we have today are derived from plants. They produce oxygen for us to breathe by the photosynthesis that they do. You know how there are many different types of animals? Well, there are many different types of plants as well. To get to plant structure, we need to outline two major plant categories, vascular and non-vascular. Recall that in the human body, your vascular system includes arteries and veins. Well, plants don't have arteries, or blood for that matter. When we're talking about a vascular system in plants, we're talking about two major types of tubes or vessels called the xylem and phloem. The xylem carries water. Xylem is found throughout a vascular plant. Water is absorbed from the roots of a vascular plant and carried upwards. Roots are specially designed to help anchor plants and also to absorb the water found in the soil that they are in. The phloem carries sugars, which are typically produced in the leaves of the plants during photosynthesis. This sugar is their food source that plants make in photosynthesis. It needs to be carried throughout the plant. The phloem might start with a P, but it has that same F sound that food has, so it helps me remember that it carries the plant's food. If a plant is non-vascular, it does not have vessels like the xylem and phloem. However, it still needs water and it still produces sugar. It can't carry water upwards in the xylem because it doesn't have one. That means non-vascular plants typically are limited in size. A giant tree needs a xylem for water transport. That water's being carried against gravity. Non-vascular plants instead get their water by osmosis, kind of like soaking up water like a sponge. A great example of a non-vascular plant is moss. So remember, vascular plants, they have xylem and phloem, vascular tissue, and non-vascular plants, they don't. Much of a plant structure is actually designed to facilitate photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the ability to make sugar, the plant's own food source, from sunlight. We cannot do this. You might be able to go in the kitchen to make a sandwich, but you're just preparing your food. Wouldn't it be amazing if you could go out in your backyard and sunbathe and conjure up a sandwich in your stomach? Our little analogy is not perfect, but you can get what a big deal photosynthesis is. If you understand the importance of this function for plants, you can really understand many structure adaptations that plants have. Photosynthesis needs three major reactants to work: water, light, and carbon dioxide. Now water, we mentioned already how a plant can get its water in different ways, depending on whether they're vascular or non-vascular. So what about the other two reactants, the light and the carbon dioxide? So starting with the sunlight, how does plant structure deal with that? Well, plant cells have organelles called chloroplasts. They are the site of photosynthesis, so they help capture light energy for the process of photosynthesis. This is a complicated process that is made up of a light-dependent reaction and a light-independent reaction, also called the Kelvin cycle. It's a big enough process that we'll have to have another video clip to cover that. But the leaf structure is designed to capture this light energy with their chloroplast. The other reactant on our photosynthesis checklist is carbon dioxide. So how does the structure of plants help them obtain carbon dioxide? First of all, please realize that plants do something in addition to photosynthesis called cellular respiration, just like you, and they do need the gas oxygen, but they typically produce more oxygen than they use, which makes them helpful as oxygen producers. For photosynthesis, plants need the gas CO2, carbon dioxide. This is the gas conveniently that we exhale, which means that we breathe this gas out. Many plants have these fascinating little openings, pores really, called stomata. Stomata is the plural, and stoma is the singular form of that word. Stomata are typically found on the bottom of leaves, and in some species they're actually on the top. Stomata have a major role in gas exchange. Gases can flow in through the stomata and out through the stomata, and the CO2 that enters is really needed for photosynthesis. There's only one little problem. The plant can't keep those stomata open all the time. Why? Well, water will escape. And remember, plants need water too for photosynthesis. So the plant has to determine whether to open or close its stomata. It does this with the help of guard cells. If guard cells have the stomata open, it gets the gases it needs, but it can lose water. If guard cells have the stomata closed, it gets to save its water, but then it can't get any gases. At night, most plants, with a few exceptions that we'll talk about towards the end, close their stomata because they can conserve water. At night, they can't do much photosynthesis because there's not much sunlight. So what's the point in keeping stomata open? During sunny days, most plants tend to open their stomata to get the gases they need to do the photosynthesis. But if the day gets way too hot and the plant is low on water, it may close its stomata. Different plant species have different kinds of adaptations in their structure to help them survive. Because if one thing is true about plants, they are survivors. Here are some great examples of plant structure adaptations that help them with various functions. Plants that have to conserve water, they tend to have very thin leaves, so they don't have much surface area, and that way they don't lose that much water. Think about pine trees with their skinny pine needles, or think about the plants that live in the desert. Remember how we said that most plants close their stomata at night? Well, some desert plants have adapted by opening their stomata at night when it's not ridiculously hot, and they have a specialized way to store the gases they need for the daytime. This allows them to close their stomata during the day to prevent water loss during the hot desert sun. Plants that have a lot of access to water, but maybe are shaded by lots of taller plants in the jungle, they might have really broad, wide leaves, so they can soak up as much sun as possible. It's hard to live in someone else's shadow. Since there's plenty of water, these big-leaved plants don't have to worry about all the surface area losing water because there's plenty of water to go around. Or, have you heard about carnivorous plants, like the Venus flytrap or the pitcher plant? These plants still do photosynthesis to make their sugar. But carnivorous plants also have the ability to digest insects, typically by using special enzymes in a juice that they secrete. These plants tend to live in areas where the soil is low in nitrogen. Plants and other organisms use nitrogen to make proteins. Insects are a great way to supplement this nitrogen need. If you ever look at the ingredients in plant fertilizer, you'll find that fertilizers are typically high in nitrogen. And you know when people hang up mistletoe? So sweet, right? You're supposed to get a kiss under it. Is it terribly ironic that you are hanging out a potentially parasitic plant that uses its roots to steal nutrients and water from its host plant? Plants also have some amazing reproductive adaptations, but we have another clip for that. Well, that's it for the Amoeba Sisters, and we remind you to stay curious.
Okay, so the coolest thing I like about this video is that they went over everything that plants need, like water, sunlight, CO2, where those come in, and then what do plants make? Oxygen and glucose, and where those come out. So, and those are tied into their systems, because it's a system that takes in the sunlight, a system that takes in the water, a system that transports the water, a system that brings in the gas, okay? They're just not the same equivalents as the human systems. Okay, so now we're going to go over the PowerPoint with all of our plant notes. You guys are going to get a copy of this, and we are going to tape it into our journal, okay? So, I'm going to give you the copy of it now. Don't tape it in now, because we're going to try to just get this video done with for the people who are not here. We'll tape this in later. But you have all the notes I'm about to go over. Those of you at home, you'll just have to come and get a copy. Okay, so our objectives are to identify the major systems in plants, describe their interactions, okay, and how they do these things to carry out what they need to do with their vital functions. So all the things that go into plants and everything that comes out. Okay, so first thing that we need to know, 2 vocab words that are going to be on the STAR test. When they talk about plants, they talk about either a root system or a shoot system. So it's super easy. Anything underground is which? Does underground sound like the root system or the shoot system? Root. So guys, anything below ground is called the root system. Anything above the ground is a shoot system. Think about like the shoots of plants. They shoot upward, okay? So we have the root system and the shoot system. Now, within the tissues, mostly in the shoot system, you've got layers. It's kind of like when you cut the trunk of a tree, the rings, the layers, they look different. They're probably made of different tissue. So the first word that jumps out at me is the outside is called dermal. This sounds like epidermal or epidermis, which means your skin. What system is the skin part of? Integumentary.
Yeah.
So guys, guess what? Epidermis, dermal, it's all the same. It's the outer covering. So technically, this dermal layer is probably the integumentary system of the plant. Awesome. Then you got vascular, which means veins. What is the vascular system in a human called? Circulatory. And guess what? It just transports things. Well, guess what? Plants also have a veiny system that transports. Awesome. So they're very similar. We have dermal, vascular, and then ground, they're saying for the metabolic, okay? Real quick, transport. This is transporting things throughout the plant. We're going to talk about something that transports like water and food. Then you have your reproductive system, which is the flowering part of the plant. And then you have your response, which we're going to touch on it today, but we're going to do more notes later. So for example, if I'm a plant right here in the room, do I want to grow towards the door or do I want to grow towards the window?
Window.
Good. So I'm literally going to respond to sunlight and grow towards it. Awesome. Also, Venus fly traps. A fly lands within them, and how do they respond?
They close their mouth.
Good. So there's responses in plants. Good. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about, and then I'm going to show you about in our foldable, is the transport system within the plant. Now, do y'all see how there's a whole bunch of different cellular layers? I just wanted you to picture my legs, almost like 2 straws in a plant. One goes up, one goes down. We'll talk about why one goes up, one goes down. So that's just what I'm going to teach you right now. One of them is a little bit more complicated. We're just going to talk about it now. So, what gets absorbed at the roots? Water. So, if you need to water a plant, should you be pouring that water all over on the plant's leaves and stuff?
No.
Because they don't absorb the water. It's the roots. So you actually want to water the roots of the plant. Okay, good. So guys, my roots absorb the water, but every cell in my body as a plant needs water. So what direction must the water go? Up. So do y'all understand? Water needs to be transported upward. Okay, look up here. There's this transport system called xylem. Say it with me. Xylem. Like phylum, but xylem. Okay. Sky. What direction is the sky? Upward. So you'll remember. Xylem. Sky, upward. So the xylem transports water upward. Okay. Now, we didn't get to it yet, but the video did cover it. Well, first of all, how do plants make glucose? They absorb
CO2.
and
Oxygen.
sunlight. Good.
Sunlight.
The window's over there in case y'all with the video. Okay, so I'm absorbing sunlight. What part of a plant absorbs the sunlight? Do the roots absorb sunlight?
No.
What parts of the plant?
Leaves.
The leaves. Top of the leaf or the bottom of the leaf?
Top.
Top, good. So the leaf all the way up here at the top of a plant absorbs the sunlight and makes the glucose. But we need to feed every single cell in the body of the plant. So we make the glucose here, but what direction do we have to transport it?
Down.
Down. This is called phloem. Say phloem. Phloem. Guess where it goes?
Down.
Low, down. So flow, low, xi, sky. Okay? So we're making the glucose and we're transporting it, and this is kind of like where I lied. If plants are in the middle of if leaves are in the middle of the plant,
up and down.
yes. So technically phloem goes low, but it also can go up too because we have to feed the flower of the plant. So there's only one direction for the xylem, xi, sky, but flow goes low and high if you need it, okay? So those are the transport systems in a plant. So within the shoot system, you got xylem and you got phloem. Good. Good. Okay, we are going to mention that some plants are asexual and they don't really have as much, they're not as complicated, okay? When things become sexual, they need to be pollinated. They need pollinators. And a lot of the things that they produce, such as fruits or seeds, are actually parts of the reproductive parts of the plant. We're only going to list that these are just parts of reproductive parts of the plant. We're not going to go into any detail. Maybe in like an AP bio we would. But just so you know, anytime you see fruits, nuts, berries, anything like that, flowers, pollen, those are all sexual parts of the plant. And some of the best pollinators are bee, wind, I mean, even just motion.
Birds.
Yeah, birds. Awesome. Okay. Last thing, and we're just going to touch on one of the tropisms because this PowerPoint only lists one of them. But the word tropism, think of the word trip. Where are you going? Phototropism. Photo, light, tropism, trip. Where am I going? I'm going to take a trip to the light. Okay. So there's types of movement or responses that plants do when they come in contact with light, with stimulus, due to gravity. We'll talk about those later. Today, especially with our foldable, we're going to be talking about the parts of a plant and how they basically get all of the reactants for photosynthesis in and take all the products out. Okay, so now we are going to do our foldable. I am going to give you this foldable after I'm done lecturing because instead of taking the time to where we're waiting for the slowest pace, I'm just going to put it all up on the board and y'all can copy it at your own pace. Okay, so this is going to be the front of your foldable. So this is going to be the front of your foldable where we have flower, leaves, stem, root. Good. On the front of your foldable, what we're going to do is we are going to draw a line right here. First, the first slide in our PowerPoint said what? What line am I drawing? The line that separates the what system and the what system?
The root.
The root and the
Stem. Oh.
and shoots upward.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
So first thing you're gonna do, actually I will give you this right now so you can do it on the front. The inside, you're gonna need a whole bunch of highlighters. I've got those highlighters for you.
Good.
Okay, first thing you're gonna do, fold it in half, so leave these on the outside. Then I'm gonna write an arrow downward and an arrow upward. So from this line, everything below is called the root system.
Right. I think it's wet.
Everything above is called the shoot system. Okay. It does have a response system and a transport system, but right now we're just going to concentrate on the main root versus the shoot, because these are words for our STAR test. So draw a thick line. Everything above is the root system, or below is the root system, above is the shoot system. Yep. Yeah. It will open up like a book.
So, are we supposed to like fold it in half like this?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The inside is going to get a little bit more complicated like this, but it's so awesome, y'all. I designed this. I have all of the formula of the photosynthesis. So remember, plants need sun, water, CO2. We're going to find out, where does the sun actually come in? Where does the CO2 come in? Where does the water come in? And then it makes oxygen and glucose. Well, where do those go also? Okay, glucose is made and then goes and feeds the plant, but oxygen is released as a byproduct. So where does that all go? Also, the roots have a major function. The stem, the leaves, and the flower have huge functions too. So follow with me, but do not write anything. I will give you plenty of time to write this all. Okay. Okay. You guys, if you can't see it well, just go to my plan book today and pull it up. Okay, it's attached and it's completed just like this. So pull it up on your plan book if you can't see this as clear, okay? Okay, so first thing I did was I put the formula for photosynthesis. Sun, water, CO2 yields gives us oxygen and glucose. So first off, let's talk about the parts of the plant. I already have this all written down here, so I'm just going to reiterate what I just wrote down. What is the purpose of the roots? Well, the roots absorb water from the ground and also absorb micronutrients. Roots actually are super hairy. Picture all their little hair tentacles as little napkins or little paper towels that just absorb everything. They absorb water mostly and also can absorb micronutrients like nitrogen, magnesium, stuff like that. Okay, so I drew water droplets here, okay? So water is being absorbed in the roots. Okay, next thing I want to do is jump up here to the leaves. Why are leaves so cool? Okay, so I stole this from Miss Rose in the library, okay? And I'm going to tell you this really cool thing we're going to do tomorrow. So the top of a leaf is always shiny and waxy, and a lot of times it's darker in color than the bottom of the leaf. That's to attract the sun more. What colors attract the sun?
Light colors.
What was that again?
Dark.
Dark colors, good. You don't want to be caught out in the sunlight wearing black, good. So you want dark colors to absorb and to attract the sunlight, good. You also want really large leaves. Some plants compete for each other, see who's higher, see who has the bigger leaves. Okay, up here, guys.
Yep.
Here. So the bottom of the leaves, don't need to be waxy, they don't need to be dark, okay? And they actually have what the video called those stomata holes. So they kind of look like lips. Sometimes they're closed, sometimes they're open. Picture your mouth full of water and you don't swallow. What happens when you open your mouth?
Comes out.
Yeah. So what the video said was, it mostly does gas exchange. Ready? Look up here. Plants take in CO2, breathe out oxygen, okay? But they also control water. So if you're jam-packed with water, if you open your stomata for air, water might come out by default. So it actually controls the air, but also the water. So tomorrow, what I did today was I painted with nail polish the bottom of a leaf, and I'm gonna rip the nail polish, the clear nail polish coat off, and when I put it underneath a microscope, I actually see the imprint, because I'm ripping the nail polish off, so I'm getting an imprint of the leaf. I actually see these holes, and they look like little lips. It's crazy, we're gonna look at it tomorrow. But anyway, so these leaves, super cool. Okay, the top of the leaf is where the sun comes in. The sun hits the chloroplast in the cell, okay? It stimulates the chlorophyll in the chloroplast in the plant cell, and that's what is the easy bake oven that makes the glucose. Okay, so the sun hits the leaves, that's where the glucose is made. So remember, the glucose will be going low, we'll talk about that, but it's gonna be distributed everywhere in the plant. Now the bottom is where we have these stomata holes, and it's for mostly gas exchange. CO2 comes in, oxygen comes out. So when we're doing all this photosynthesis, the plant cells are actually becoming concentrated with oxygen. Do plants need oxygen?
No.
So then they just release it through their stomata holes. Good. Okay, now let's talk about the stem. This is where we have our two transport systems. The stem transport things up and down. Okay, xylem, xysky, it only goes upward. Do the roots have to go downward?
No.
No, they are downward. They're the downest thing in the plant. So the xysky, that only goes upward. Then flow low. Since the leaves are pretty high, I say low, but technically it has to feed everything in the plant. Miss Feist. Yes, he is. Yes, he can. I'll send him up. Bye. Jaden, up to Miss Brandy.
Miss Brandy?
Okay. So, I know we say flow low, but technically the leaves that just made all that yummy glucose is going to feed all the bottom of the plant and the top of the plant. Because look it, the flower is the highest most part, so it also has to travel upward. So, xysky, flow low, but also it can go higher. Okay, good. Last but not least, the flower of the plant. This is important, okay? So I know I have a lot of stuff labeled here, but basically you have this inside pink part that I highlighted. This is considered the egg of the plant, okay? This is called the pistil. Think of it like a pistol, like don't you mess with that girl, boys. Boom, 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 you boys, don't you mess with that girl. So this is the pistil. She got a pistol, okay? And then you have these, they're called stamen, but it's basically this long filament with this anther, and that's where the pollen is located. They call it the, they call it the sticky stigma, that's what it is. Okay, so anyway, you have this female part in the middle, and this kind of looks like a woman's like her uterus and her ovary. It's the middle part. And then you got these male parts that kind of look like, you know, that male part that males have, this long male part. You use your imagination. So this plant, this flower, actually has both the female and the male part. Not all flowers do, and that's why we need pollinators. If you have a female plant and then a male plant separate, you need a pollinator to come take the pollen from the male plant, and as it's flying around or as the wind's going, it needs to get its pollen into the female plant. So one question on the STAR test that I thought was very fair was, what is the path that male sperm, has to take to fertilize a female flower? So guys, if this blue thing is the boy part and this is the girl part, wouldn't you say that the pollen has to go from this part to this part? Yeah. So all you had to do is look at the vocab words, and it said the pollen traveled up the filament to the anther. I think it might have said the anther touched the stigma, and then the pollen went down the pistil to the ovary, okay? Plant reproduction is not hard, and if they ever give you a picture, it's to help you, okay? So, you got a female part and a male part. Flower is the reproductive structure, and remember, pollinators, they get attracted to brightly colored flower petals, okay, probably some smells or whatnot, okay, and brightly colors attract pollinators such as bees, okay. So for the rest of the period, all we're doing is we're filling in our foldable, and that's what y'all will do at home, okay? So that's all we're doing for the rest of the period.